if this audio recording or quotes from it come up in the indictment. But at this point, we don't know. It's clearly, though, a piece of evidence that even the former president's legal team acknowledges is a problem for him.
This is remarkable in every way, Paula. Everyone should go on CNN.com right now and read through your report because you have all of these stunning quotes in there. Thank you for this. Stick with us. Let's also bring in Caitlin Polantz, live outside the courthouse in Miami, where Trump will appear Tuesday afternoon. You were one of the reporters who broke the story of that taped conversation. This development to that is extremely significant.
It is. Poppy and Phil, we knew what this was going to sound like because it had been described to us, but to see the words there on the screen, to hear Paula read those words that former President Donald Trump uttered after he left the White House in this meeting, where it's capturing the sound of him rustling through papers, where there are multiple witnesses in the room. And, you know, the big question here, as Paula was saying, is this going to be part of the charge explicitly?
Am I wearing a suit on Tuesday? The answer is fuck yes, dude. Are you crazy? Listen, dude. Listen. A couple things are absolute certainties on the HasanAbi broadcast. Top of the hour comes with a 3-minute ad break. You can avoid that top of the hour ad break by subscribing or by getting gifted a sub if you're lucky. Another certainty on the HasanAbi broadcast is I'm wearing a motherfucking suit when Trump is getting arraigned or indicted, has to appear for court. I'm doing it. You know, I'm celebrating his downfall, but mostly I'm celebrating the content that comes out of it. Let's be real. This kind of shit is very entertaining to me because Trump is so fucking, he is so entertaining, dude. There is no other way to cut it. Like, the way he operates, the way he carries himself, the way he fucking conducts business, the way he does crimes, it's fire. It's fucking awesome. Sandwich time. Thank you for the 5 gifted, allowing 5 people to no longer see the ads at the top of the hour. It's crazy. FBI raided a Discord server because Trump's documents, Fox News reported. FBI raids Hoscord. Oh, no. Probably a good thing, honestly. Fucking clear that shit out.
And if it is, that sets this recording up to be a key piece of evidence as this heads to trial. It would be something that the Justice Department would very likely play to the jury, almost certainly, if that is part of what is indicted here as a retention charge. And once they have that retention charge, that is something we know that is going to be charged in the case because Donald Trump's attorney last night, Jim Trusty, said it would be. We don't know exactly what paper it will be around, what classified documents. But if it is about this document he's describing in this audio tape, and that episode is part of this from July 2021 at Bedminster, if that's part of the case, they have to prove 2 things. That Donald Trump knew he had a classified record or a national defense information piece of paper in his possession, and that he was willfully keeping it from the federal government outside of a protected classification area. Not that he has the ability to declassify it, although it is quite sensational that he says, as president, I could have declassified, but now I can't. But the other words in this, I'll show you. Look at this. Highly confidential. This is secret information. It doesn't really get much more explicit than that.
It really doesn't. Caitlin Polantz, also, stay right there. Let's bring in our colleague and friend, CNN anchor Caitlin Collins, who was also on that team that broke the stunning reporting last week. CNN senior justice correspondent Evan Perez also joins us, and CNN legal analyst and former federal prosecutor Elliot Williams is with us, and CNN political analyst and senior political correspondent for the New York Times, Maggie Haberman. Paula Reed also back with us. I want to read part of this transcript. Quote, as president, I could have declassified, but now I can't.
Wait, what? Charlie Kirk pleads with Trump GOP competition to suspend their campaigns in solidarity with Trump. Ann Coulter coming after Charlie Kirk, saying, that's nothing. I'm calling on every Republican that commits suicide in solidarity with Trump. Otherwise, we don't have a country, folks. Damn, Ann Coulter is so far off the Trump train. It's not even funny, dude. Holy shit. Ann Coulter and her kind are quite literally responsible for Donald Trump, I would say. with the rhetoric that they presented as normal, and like how they routinely dialed up the fucking psychometer on the Republican commentary side, that basically opened up the floodgates for someone like Donald Trump to take on that exact same narrative and you know, become president by doing exactly what the fucking TV people were saying, only to later realize, and Coulter got off the Trump chain for the record, only to later realize, like, oh man, it's fine if we do it. It's not great when the president does it because it doesn't reflect well on a national campaign. Law tip: I've met murderers with a better instinct of self-preservation than this motherfucker. I'll talk to cops and clear this whole thing up type beat. Worse than that, in my opinion. Worse than that.
Perhaps the most stunning line of all of this. Caitlin Collins, let me go to you for your thoughts, given you were a key part of this team that broke the original reporting. I
did call Ann Coulter old one time in a televised debate where I owned her.
Expect that would be a key part when
she refused to look me in the eyes
this
while we were debating.
Is unsealed. Everyone will be looking for, was this tape a key part of it? Because this was, again, about Iran. This was about a key national security issue.
Yeah, and it completely undercuts everything that Trump and his legal team has said publicly about the powers that he had after leaving office or what he could do with these documents. And I do think that is one of those damning lines of the transcript of this tape that we reported on. And there's a reason this tape has caused so much consternation in Trump's legal team. They didn't learn about it all that long ago. It was only in March when this recording was played during testimony from another Trump aide where they heard it. And then Trump's legal team was alerted to the fact that prosecutors did have this audio in their hands. And having Trump on tape admitting that he doesn't have the power to declassify it, which we all knew because we've read the Presidential Records Act, we've looked at what that declassification process is, but it completely undercuts any of the defenses that you've seen Trump's legal team offer up publicly. And so that is why this is such a central piece in this reporting, of course, in the bigger context of what we saw last night with the former president being indicted in this, of course, now going where Caitlin Polantz is on Tuesday to that Miami courthouse. This is going to be something that is a real problem for his legal team to try to defend in court and explain. And it's something that they are pretty candid about behind the scenes when it comes to just how crucial this tape is.
Elliot, as a lawyer, when you look through or listen to that transcript, there's, yes, him acknowledging that he can't unilaterally declassify things by magic, right, or after the fact. He also seems to be holding and talking about a specific document. What stands out to you as most problematic for the former president's legal team?
Well, what helps the former president is it appears that they have not found this document, and it appears, based on what we know about the charges thus far, that he was not charged with disclosing the contents of a document to another person. That itself would have been a federal offense if he'd had access to something sensitive and shown it to somebody else, if it could hurt the national defense. Look, a challenge here is that classification or declassification doesn't really matter as an element of the offenses he's charged with. Merely what it matters is that they're government records, and most importantly, that there was a series of acts taken to obstruct the Justice Department's investigation. So it's a little bit of a red herring to go down the road of saying, if he declassified it, therefore there would not have been crimes committed here, because the simple fact is once the documents were removed, mishandled, misappropriated, whatever word you want to use, that's when the crimes were committed.
Attorney James Trusty, one
Why
of
does it
the
end that
members
way?
of former President Trump's legal team with us now. Mr. Trusty, good morning to you.
Morning.
Mr. Trusty, just first of all, what was the president's response to the charges? And when did you first learn that this grand jury in Florida was being used?
Yeah, well, on that last part, fairly recently, and it's a really intriguing kind of shift of events. I mean, there's been endless grand jury dragging people up from Florida to Washington, D.C. for many months. everyone from the vice president of the United States to groundskeepers to maids to Secret Service agents to lawyers that supposedly hold privileges. So there's been a real bum rush in D.C. in terms of using an awful lot of grand jury and getting a lot of rulings that are historic and perhaps very bad for the country. Recently, we started to hear about witnesses going down or staying down in Florida to appear in front of the grand jury. And it could be a reflection of an acknowledgement by DOJ they had some venue problems, that they really never should have venued it in D.C., but they were very happy to get the kind of rulings and home cooking they got. Or it could be something where they want to sanitize, I guess kind of related to that, sanitize all of the proceedings from D.C. and kind of repackage, remarket it for consumption down in South Florida. So we'll see. As to the president, look, he's a resilient guy. This just in. He's a pretty tough guy. It's a difficult conversation when you're talking to a client who's actually factually innocent of these charges. I mean, and it's a long story we can get into there about the Presidential Records Act.
He's trusty, guys.
Yeah,
Don't
so that
worry.
part, he was upset for the country. But in terms of him, he's a fighter, and he's going to come out swinging, and he'll be fine. But, I mean, that was really, to me, kind of the interesting inside part of that is to see him almost immediately start talking about what it means for this country and our criminal justice system and not just about himself.
Is he going to appear on Tuesday? And Jim, do you think he'll
that's
also
definitely
face
not just
charges
his
in DC as well?
defense.
He will appear in court on Tuesday, no doubt. He's not afraid of this thing. It's a ridiculous criminalization of a non-criminal dispute. So he'll be there, and and so will Secret Service, and we'll coordinate with U.S. Marshals and make sure that it is as efficient and safe as we can make the whole situation. As to any other charges, I don't think so. I mean, look, we think this whole investigation is an overreach. Again, something that was never criminal for any other president in history has suddenly been weaponized by this Department of Justice. It would be, another bridge too far for them to try to break up charges for some reason to kind of hedge their bets and charge him in Washington, D.C. as well. So we think that this is it. We'll see the indictment sometime between now and Tuesday afternoon, and we think that's the only indictment that we're facing.
You're his lawyer, so obviously you're going to maintain his innocence, but...
Not anymore. Not anymore. As of 5 hours ago, Trump lawyer Trusty and Rowley have both resigned.
Jim, I think a lot of folks have a hard time understanding how
Like he went on the Today Show and then fucking
the
resigned.
president can maintain he did nothing wrong when the fact of the matter is that the president had documents at his home that were classified. As we understand it, there was a subpoena issued to turn over those documents. In August of last year, the lawyer maintains that all the documents were overturned. The FBI then shows up at Mar-a-Lago and finds roughly 100 classified documents. How can the president maintain he did nothing wrong?
Yeah, well, the starting point is up until the Presidential Records Act, any former president could possess anything they want. I mean, that was just kind of the nature of the business. We've entrusted them under the Constitution with the nation's secrets. So if they want to keep stuff, they can keep it. The PRA, the Presidential Records Act, kicked in because of Richard Nixon. And what it anticipates is nothing criminal. There's no criminal statute within the Presidential Records Act that says it's a violation to possess any of these things, even the most sensitive documents. What they say is the world is presidential or personal, and the president, of all people, the former president, makes the call. If the archivist disagrees, it doesn't turn into a criminal case. They can sue civilly in Washington, D.C. So the whole system anticipates that we've entrusted our former presidents with the nation's secrets, documentary or otherwise. Yeah. And if there is any sort of fight, it gets resolved civilly, not with raids, not with a leak campaign, Jim, not with what we've seen in this case.
Jim, I know you spent a number of years at the Justice Department. You know the special counsel, Jack Smith, pretty well. Even if your client did nothing wrong, why not tell your client to at least knock off the personal attacks on the special counsel?
Look, this guy has lived through 7 years of misplaced aggression, of ridiculous impeachments, of accusations, of, Michael Cohen, Stormy Daniels lawsuits or criminal cases being revived by politicized prosecutors. You can't, when you look at what we've seen in terms of the conduct of this investigation, he has every right to be offended, as should all of us. I mean, it's just broken in the last couple of days. We've known about it for a while, that one of the deputies for Jack Smith extorted an attorney to try to get him to flip his witness.
Jim, to be clear, and I've heard you make this claim before, we don't have any independent evidence, and so far you haven't produced any independent evidence to back that up. But
that's awesome. They're classic. I love that when they're just like, oh yeah, by the way, every single person, isn't it crazy that every single person that happens to find Trump, like happens to investigate Trump, is always just a bad guy somehow. You don't even need any evidence for it though. Just take my word for it. It's just always like they just always happen to be a bad guy, okay? I don't know how. I don't know why, but they just always somehow, I guess they must be bad because they don't like Donald Trump.
to your point there, twice impeached, now twice indicted. The president plans to campaign this weekend to those who would say that we like the former president. We like some of his policies, but now the guy has too much baggage. What would you say to those Republican primary voters?
Look, I'm not in the
Wait, this is a fucking lawyer. Why are you asking him that?
political lane, I'm in the legal lane. But to go back to your kind of dismissal of what I just said, there is a statement by an officer of the court, a very well-respected attorney, submitted to a federal judge detailing exactly what I just said, the extortion, the violation of the obstruction statute by those who are trying to pin an obstruction charge on President Trump. That is a momentous moment, and nothing I've ever seen in the Department of Justice in my history, and it will play out. This is not just lawyer talk. This is the real thing.
You're talking about a sealed letter to a judge there. Jim Trusty. Jim, thank you. Thanks for your time, sir.
All right, thank you.
All right, let us bring in NBC senior legal correspondent Laura Jarrett and our chief White House correspondent Kristen Welker. Laura, if you're listening to Trump's attorney, it seemed like they were sort of surprised by the fact that this indictment came down. What do you make of that?
It's interesting. They almost were in the position as all of us this time last week, not even knowing about the Florida grand jury, and seemed to only fairly recently, he said, been informed by it, even though Jack Smith apparently had been quietly working away on this for the better part of a month, and witnesses were going in there unbeknownst to us. But, he's making this point about retaining classified documents as if everybody does it. Everybody does not keep the documents after they've been asked to return them repeatedly. That's what makes this willful under the...
And that's it. Like, the idea that, like, everyone has, like, classified documents, like, what the fuck do you mean? Like, okay, fine. Makes sense, a little memento, right? From the wonderful time you had in office. But they give it back when asked. They don't fucking lie to the authorities and say, no, I gave it all back to you. And then get caught in that lie like 3 fucking times. The hilarious part is this probably would not have become as big as a controversy. I mean, it would have been a controversy regardless. But like, Trump cooked himself a little bit because he turned it into like a FBI raid when it could have been like a classic document extraction. Like, what are you guys talking about? Like, he could have tried to downplay it a little bit, but he made it a much larger issue from the jump, thinking that it wasn't going to be that big of a deal. Like, they had a subpoena for these things. They had a warrant for searching the premises. People would have probably covered it and been like, ooh, drama, there's cops at Mar-a-Lago. But it would not have become as big as Trump greatly overemphasizing the severity of the situation. In a situation like what happened in Mar-a-Lago, he could have very clearly just said, oh, this is normal, part of the part and parcel, part of the process. Who amongst us hasn't like mismanaged some files here and there? Who gives a fuck? The FBI came in. We told them, they can look at the entirety of Mar-a-Lago. He could have lied in the other direction and tried to downplay the severity of the situation, but he chose for political gain. It miscalculated for political gain that this would be a good opportunity to galvanize the base. And that created a larger shitstorm because the Republicans started defending him immediately, started saying like, this is, the FBI weaponizing, criminal investigations and criminal charges and blah, blah, blah. And like, it put this situation, which could have been literally just, document mismanagement, and maybe even seen otherwise as like kind of ridiculous in the eyes of the broader public, it turned it into a big deal, a big ordeal. So now I think he's like personally fucked himself over a little bit by highlighting the situation.
The statute, and that's why this has escalated into a criminal case. It's very different than finding some documents by accident and then immediately turning them over. That is not this case.
So just to be clear, so for a year, Trump has had these documents. He was asked repeatedly to return them. So in these charges, which we don't know what they are because they're sealed, it has something to do with the retention of them, right?
It has to do with the retention of them, having no authority to keep them. He's no longer president, and he's keeping them in an unclassified setting.
All right. So, Kristen, let me talk to you for a second.
Which he
so
had
you
full
wonder,
knowledge
is this
over.
going to help Trump or hurt Trump? Well, moments after the indictment came down, he was fundraising on it. So it seems like former President Trump thinks
He can't even claim he didn't know. He literally openly on tapes said, "Oh, this is very illegal. Shouldn't be showing it to you, but I will." Bye-bye.
this is going to be something that's going to help him out.
You're right, Hoda. In the short term, there's no doubt this is emboldening him yet again. We saw this in the wake of the New York indictment as well. You have a number of his Republican rivals rushing to criticize the process, accusing DOJ of being weaponized by the Biden administration. But I do think there are a couple of differences here. One, you do have some challengers who are criticizing him. Asa Hutchinson saying that he has too much legal back.
Okay, let's get to the motherfucking juice here. Okay, let's get to what the freaks are saying. Now that you know what you know. Okay, well, leaked social security number and phone number on Fox News. Has DeSantis responded? Yeah, like a little dog. Okay. Oh God, this guy's back.
Short distance between him
motherfucking
and the obstructive action. It's just
motherfucking Kellyanne Conway's husband.
With Nixon, it took a long chain of
don't know why they keep posting this fucking
Nixon.
guy.
Nixon was way up at the top of the pyramid, and he really was the last to know. Trump is here in the boxes, messing with the boxes, moving them around, and it is at his home, in his bathroom, over a toilet. I mean, it's crazy how powerful this evidence is, and you just take 1/10 of this, and you have a case that's airtight.
Yeah, very, very powerful case indeed. Audie Cornish is with us as well. The indictment lists public statements Trump had previously made about the importance of protecting classified information. I want to play some clips. Listen to this.
I'm going to enforce all laws concerning the protection of classified information. No one will be above the law. We can't have someone in the Oval Office who doesn't understand the meaning of the word confidential or classified.
What's your reaction when you hear what he used to say as opposed to what he actually did?
Well, politically, it's not all that unusual. You could probably play a similar round of clips around like deficit reduction or taxes, et cetera. I mean, that's kind of his MO in terms of this is okay for me to do, it's not okay for someone else to do. I think the question I have going forward is what are the other candidates going to have to do over the next couple of months to kind of mitigate the effect
Cum
of
spammers
this
are so
on
fucking
the
cringe,
entire
dude.
campaign, because it means that
It's cringe.
instead of talking about any
It's
of
cringe.
the political issues you want to
It's
talk
like
about,
funny
or the
when
economy, et cetera,
you know,
you won't only be asked about Trump in this
when I don't have
indictment.
fucking
You'll be
bandwidth.
asked, should a future president pardon?
When I don't, when
a
I'm
former
like
president? Should a future
accidentally
president do
getting
X, Y, and
knocked
Z?
offline or something
Everything
instead of
becomes a
spamming
kind of
F,
litmus
but
test for the voter, while they're balancing the old litmus test in the party, which is
Cringe.
to back Trump no matter what.
And George Conway, I'm curious, 37 felony counts included in this lengthy indictment, including conspiracy to obstruct justice, which carries a maximum prison term of, 20 years. If he's convicted of conspiracy to obstruct justice, which you think there's a strong case
Yes.
he was involved in a conspiracy to obstruct
There's no
justice.
question.
Will he wind up in jail?
Well, I've always hesitated in the following sense. I think he will be convicted of multiple felonies. And the question is whether or not he has to be incarcerated in some fashion, whether it is in home detention or actual U.S. Bureau of Prisons facility. I don't see how he does not serve some kind of a sentence for this. It's just too much. If he doesn't go to jail or be put in house arrest, then we might as well just give up on enforcing the laws of protecting classified, sensitive national defense information.
You think he's going to wind up in jail?
I'm not going to make that prediction because I think we're a long way away from that. We're just at the charging stage. I think there's an opportunity if he were serious about addressing the serious criminal charges ahead of him to engage with the Justice Department in plea discussions. But this is a really hefty indictment. These are really serious charges. And if it was anyone else, the person would likely be in jail.
I assume you're right. All right, guys, thanks very, very much. Still ahead, we're going to tell you what we're learning right now about security concerns just ahead of Trump's schedule.
Oh, here, yeah. I mean, we talked about this already, but this also is like hoist it on your own petard situation, where Donald Trump, in an effort to do the lock her up Hillary Clinton shit, basically approved a law increasing penalties for mishandling classified information. Does Donald Trump give a shit about mishandling classified information? Clearly not. However, he did this specifically because he thought this would shut his audience the fuck up, like the people that wanted to lock Hillary Clinton in jail. He thought that it would be a good way to be like, look, I did what I can. Okay? I did what I can, folks. And basically what ended up happening in this situation is classic fucked up, classic situation where what he did